Thank you, Mr. Williams, for joining us. Our students always get excited and learn so much from our speakers, and we do too. So first, we'll start just with a brief introduction to our school, California School of Management and Leadership. Alliant International University is a private university. We are WASC accredited, and we prepare students for professional careers in business, psychology, forensics, education, nursing, and law. We have 6 campuses in California, throughout California. San Diego and Los Angeles is where we are present as California School of Management and Leadership. But other programs and schools also have campuses in San Francisco, Irvine, Fresno, Sacramento. And we recently opened a new school of nursing in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. We are actually an established old school. Our oldest program was a law school that was established in 1909. And we have hundreds, thousands of graduates, alumni around the world. So we train our students to have a competitive edge in the tech and quantitative fields. With our management and leadership degrees, students learn to lead and mentor the next generation of professionals into the ever-expanding arena of business and help make students mark locally, nationally, and globally. So we have graduate programs. I'm the program director for the MBA program, Master of Business Administration. We also have multiple Master of Science programs, which are STEM degrees, Information Systems Technology, Data Analytics, and Healthcare Analytics. And we also offer multiple certificate programs that align with our master programs, including cybersecurity, data analytics, data management, e-business management, and healthcare analytics. And we have 2 doctoral programs, one of which is a Doctor of Business Administration, DBA, that is more geared towards students who would like to advance in their careers, and PhD in organizational leadership, students who are more academic oriented, although students graduating from either program can choose to teach and be in academia or work in the corporate world. CSML Career and Professional Development Program. CSML students must engage in practical training through our Career and Professional Development Program, starting from the first day that they attend to graduation. CPD offers enhanced academic learning, networking opportunities, career path evaluation, and mentorship from industry professionals. This is really important and exciting for our students because a majority of our students are international students, and they have this opportunity through this program, which is an integral part of our programs, all of our programs. They have this opportunity to work on projects, client projects, real projects, faculty created projects. Obviously, we want all of our students to be able to have internship opportunities, job opportunities, and we hope to prepare our students through this program for the job market, basically. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Hanley to introduce our speaker today.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ozart. So yes, I have the pleasure of introducing Jamar Williams. Not only is he excellent in his field, and you guys are going to be impressed with his presentation, particularly the background where he came from and the industry that it's in. It's very exciting. But I've also got to know Jamar over the years. I think we've known each other, Jamar, for about 10 or 12 years, somewhere around there. We developed a good friendship as well. When I met Jamar years ago, I was in the real estate business, and he was just getting started with just this infancy of the drone industry itself, and then also into video production. So I've really seen him, come from the start when he moved out here from Baltimore, Maryland, to growing this company from just a incubated startup to where it is now. And so it's very impressive what he has done. And so who is Jamar? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read his bio, and then I'm going to turn the presentation over to him, and then he will present, and then we'll have a Q&A afterwards. Jamar Williams, the visionary behind Promo Drone Incorporated, is not just an entrepreneur, he's an innovation catalyst. With over 20 years of experience as a leader, creator, and community champion, Jamar brings a unique blend of business acumen and creative vision to the table. As founder and CEO, Jamar leads Promo Drone's global expansion, forging strategic partnerships with industry giants such as Dragonfly Incorporated, a drone manufacturer, Google with AI solutions, Mitsubishi Electric drone support services, Curaçao Incorporated, a Department of Defense contracts, and the World Trade Center International Development. A patented inventor, Jamar's Starling X2, a rapid response LED messaging drone, is gaining recognition across public safety, emergency response, and event management sectors. This disruptive innovation is set to revolutionize communication in diverse scenarios while creating vast entrepreneurship opportunities. Jamar's success was recently recognized when he was named Business of the Year by the LA Tribune, but his impact reaches beyond business. As a true thought leader, he champions diversity, mentors emerging talent, and supports veterans, fostering growth across all ages and experience levels. He serves on the San Diego Parks Foundation board and holds an FAA Part 107 certification for drone piloting. Driven by a passion for creation, Jamar is dedicated to transforming how we perceive and experience the world, leaving an enduring legacy in every industry and community. Very impressive bio, Jamar. My students don't want to hear from me anymore. They want to hear from you. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks for having me. I'm super humbled and excited to be here. I always enjoy when I get a chance to speak in front of students, especially because I remember being on that side of the fence, kind of not knowing what I wanted to do. And somehow I stumbled forward enough times to end up with the drone company that's doing some pretty cool stuff. So today's conversation, I'm going to kind of go through what inspired me to start Promo Drone, my background, and a little bit about where we are and where we're going. I think now is an especially good time to be having this conversation because there's so much disruption and economic turmoil that a lot of businesses at all scales are having to adjust, pivot, and make strategic decisions that may not have been necessarily foreseen, but it's really, really testing our grit and our ability to maneuver in environments that may not be ideal. So let's talk about grit. I've read lots of books on being an entrepreneur. I'm a serial reader, and I wasn't always that way. When I was a kid, reading to me was like the most boring thing you could ever do. And I think it was because I wasn't interested in the information that I was, being forced to read, I guess. Sometimes as students, you might really relate to some degree, but as I've grown and I've gotten my feet wet in different industries, I'm really appreciating access to information that we have nowadays, not only for personal development, but for perspective into things like starting a business, growing a business, and sticking to it through the ups and downs. With any business, any successful entrepreneur that you've ever seen, no matter how famous they are, how rich or how successful, they've gone through their own personal journeys. You've probably seen this meme where it says what we think success looks like, and it's this straight line from A to B, and then what success really looks like, and it's this squiggly line that's going all over the place and taking you to ways that you never would have envisioned. And that's kind of the story of my life. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, son of a jazz musician who was also happened to be in technology. So I was fortunate that when a lot of kids my age and in the environment that I grew up in didn't have dads, I not only had a dad, but I had a dad that was a pretty cool guy, on the creative side. And he also was very technologically inclined as well. So at a young age, this was back in the 90s, I'll date myself a little bit. I was one of the first kids to have access to the internet with the AOL CD-ROMs that would come in the mail. My dad would build computers, so I had access to using the internet, and that really kept my mind fascinated. I was curious. I was wondering what this internet thing is. It's kind of like where we are today with the impact of AI and some of the other progressions that we've gone through. So as a kid, I would watch over my dad's shoulder as he built computers, and I learned what a hard drive was, and I learned what a CD-ROM drive was, which sounds archaic today, and what RAM was, and a video card, and how to connect a monitor to the motherboard, and I was fascinated by it. And one of my early memories that I have as a child was going to the computer shows with my dad. So I don't know if they still have them, but they were big trade shows where you could go and get shareware, where people would burn applications to 3.5 floppy disks, and you could go buy them for cheap. So I was always a gamer growing up. Loved to go hang out with my dad for the memorable experiences. And I was introduced to technology early to understand the impact it would have. I wasn't quite ready to take the leap into technology because I was more of a creative at heart. Music is a big part of my life. And to be able to be a CEO nowadays, it parallels the music to some degree. And people say, well, how did you go from being this hip hop artist with record deals to being this CEO? And I say, it's not much different. My audience has changed, but my ability to be an MC, to be in front of people, to articulate a message, to influence, or to get people to understand my perspective is the same, right? It's just now it's a product, where my creations were songs. Now it's innovation. What started me into this entrepreneurial journey as a kid, I remember my mom dropping me off at the babysitter's, when I was a kid. And growing up prior to that, I was a latchkey child. So I would go to school, come home with the key around my neck, let myself in the house, learn to cook on my own while my mom's single mom at work. My dad's cross town, and I had a good family, but it was fragmented. So growing up in inner city Baltimore, which, I survived. It's a tough place, but it's not all the wire that you might see on TV. It's got its charms, hence the name Charm City. And today a report actually came out that we're no longer in the 25 most violent cities in America, which I take pride in that. But now I'm in San Diego. So being able to be exposed to new environments had a big impact on my ability to see the world from different perspectives. And not only that, but believe in myself and believe that the things that I can create could have an impact on a much larger scale than just the community that I grew up in. When I was a kid, I always had a fascination for creating things. I was a tinkerer, read a lot, did a lot of logic puzzles when I was a child. So figuring out how to get to an end result when only giving a certain amount of information and having to do some form logical approaches to understand how to get to that end result has been something that was always been fascinated with. So whether it's learning how to build something or write a song, construct a song, and now build a company and figure out a roadmap on how to get us to the next level of success, my brain has kind of been naturally molded over time to be a dot connector. So, I'm a self-proclaimed futurist. I look at the world for what it can be, not necessarily what it is today. And I look for how we connect dots. When you look at a constellation in the sky, to the average eye, it might just be a cluster of stars, but to somebody that can recognize patterns and has the ability to deduce and form logic, those clusters of stars become constellations, and they tell stories, and they have an ability to connect people all around the globe that are able to look up at the same time and see these things. So my fascination is building things that brings people together, that connects communities in an impactful and inspiring way. When you've gone through certain things in life, you kind of become way more appreciative of that, and you want to live an abundant, kind of fruitful life. And you want to build things that can give other people the opportunity to experience life from the way that you've learned to appreciate it. So at the root of who I am these days, it's a creative problem solver, a futurist who wants to connect communities at scale using anything that I can think of in my brain and leverage that for opportunities to make global impact. One current endeavor through Promo Drone, as Rob mentioned earlier, is we are what we call critical mass notifications company. What that means is we're using drones against the grain. I've been a Part 107 pilot for the last 12 years, since about 2013, maybe 2012. So 12, 13 years. Back before anybody really knew what drones were, I was fortunate enough to be looking over the shoulders of other people more advanced than I am in certain ways and learn from them. So when I was a kid, looking over my dad's shoulder, learning how to build and fix computers, to moving to San Diego and looking over my former business partner's shoulders when they were fabricating something called a drone, over a decade ago. Nowadays, the concept of a drone is commonplace. You find them in Walmart. You can buy them at Rite Aid for $50. But when I first was introduced to drones, the world was a lot different than anything that we could imagine it would evolve into. My very first experience with the drone, in fact, was a box of parts, right? From this little known company called DJI that nobody had heard of 12, 13 years ago, right? Unless you're an ultra, niche enthusiast. So when DJI first started, unlike today where you can order, fully fabricated bundles off of Amazon for less than $1,000, the very first drones came semi-fabricated. So they weren't fully assembled. They had parts, they had rotors and instructions, and you had to go to YouTube and figure out how to solder wires and how to configure rotors and how to program torque, things that I had no idea. But I was able to look over the shoulders of a former business partner and another startup that I had prior to Promo Drone and learn about these drones. My corporate background started in banking. My very first job out of college was a teller at a bank. I just needed some money to start paying back school loans. And I know my parents were hounding me to figure out a way to move out of the house sooner than later. Being inspired by both ends, not wanting to be broke and also not wanting to hear my parents constantly on me to find a way to make means to an ends for myself. I got a job at a bank, and I never thought that I would be in banking because I always wanted to do music. I had dreams of being this big hip hop artist. And despite my talents, I had school loans due. But what I learned from my music career is how to use my voice to inspire people and how to get people fired up and excited about something of value. So when I started in banking, it was a customer-facing opportunity as a teller where I quickly advanced to a relationship banker where I was able to start working on the account management side. So no longer just transactional, now it's becoming relational. Now I'm able to become a steward of people's finances and give them advice, and people are looking to me to understand how my opinions on finances and perspectives on things that I've learned in banking can help guide them to a more successful financial future. I went from, being a relationship banker to a branch manager, all the way up to institutional trust, where we did high-level corporate investments for retirement plans, 401k plans for fiduciaries like a bank that are sponsoring 401k retirement plans for companies that are looking to get more of their employees involved. So I say that to say your journey is going to be mixed up. You never know where it's going to take you. But all those little pieces and nuggets that you learn along the way, you never know how they're going to come back and be able to be an asset to you in other walks of your life. Continuing with the drone road, I started a small boutique company in San Diego filming real estate using drones back in 2013. So I had one of the first drones in San Diego. Now it's standardized where people are using drones to film what we would call back then MTV crib style videos of some of the luxury properties in San Diego. Quickly evolved into doing commercial real estate. So flying drones and doing interior and exterior videography for massive 50,000, 100,000, 250,000 square foot buildings around San Diego. But what I realized when we first started flying drones was there were several different types of people I would encounter. You had people that loved it, that were curious, that didn't know what was that thing. It's so cool. I want to learn more about it. That's 95% of people. You had 2.5% of people that were indifferent. They would see it and they could care less because they have their own life stuff to focus on. And then you had a 2.5, maybe a little bit more than 2.5, maybe closer to 5% of people that were apprehensive to these drones, right? Privacy concerns. Who's this guy in my neighborhood that I don't know who he is flying a device with a camera over my property? Little do they know, even though I had a uniform on for my business, they had a fear. They didn't know I wasn't trustworthy to them for whatever reason. We want to go down whatever road we can, but they didn't know me and they didn't trust me. So what I realized quickly about the technology was, even though it has all these wonderful benefits and features, there was a gap in people's ability to see the value in it until we made it something relevant to their experience. So that's how Promo Drone was born. Promo Drone was born really from the homeowners of San Diego calling the cops on me as a way for me to figure out how to, one, be more transparent in drone operations, right? Less clandestine, less surveillance and videography and photography based. And the dots in my head from songwriting and innovation and constellations, right? Say, okay, if people are coming out of their homes to look at a drone, they're not looking at Facebook, they're not looking at TV, they're taking their phone out and they're videoing my drone, one, out of curiosity, two, for safety reasons, but three, coming from a corporate world, anytime you can get people to look at something for any extended period of time, that's called marketing, and that's called successful marketing. So what if we decided to turn that opportunity into a monetized situation where our drones, since they already have the captive audience, we were able to kill two birds with one stone, no pun intended, with the drones, but not only give more transparent drone operations, but monetize it in a way that we can make it something relevant to the customer experience. So event marketing. What happens if you're able to do brand promotions on a drone at some of the largest events in the world where people trust drones, where they're supposed to see drones and get comfortable with seeing drones in real time? So what you see here is our Starlink Exploit 2 drone. It's one of the world's first scalable digital display drone. So it's a two-sided aerial display with 5,000 nit monitors on it that can be seen in direct sunlight, that are flying at altitudes anywhere from 25 to 50 feet off the ground, in large-scale event spaces where sponsors pay top dollar to have their brand seen and experienced in a more effective way. All we're really doing is building a technology that allows people to capture their attention in a faster time and engage them to take some sort of action, whether it's look at it for an extended time for brand recall, extended reach by having the drones deployed multiple times over the course for the duration of an event, or interactive by having things like QR codes or gamified aspects, scan a drone, tag brands on social media. So we're able to take an offline marketing tool, bring it online, and drive more traffic for some of the brand sponsors. I'll get into some of our other business models a little bit later in the presentation, but this is what we've built today. So this is one of our first prototypes, the Starlink Exploit 2, that we built in collaboration with Dragonfly Inc. They're a drone manufacturer out of Canada. So our product is Canadian made, North American made. So we don't have to worry about the Chinese made drones that have some restrictions in the public safety space, which is one of our verticals. And they invested in our company. So one of the strategies when you're growing a business is finding strategic partners, because we can't all do this on our own. And finding partners that not only can build and fabricate your technology, but see the vision the way you do to also bring finances to it. It's a double win at the end of the day, because we're able to piggyback on their market position, their 30 years of drone building experience to kind of accelerate our ability to build product and build what we consider an asset light corporation, right? We do manufacturing, we do distribution, we do sales, we do product development, but we do it through third-party partners, so we don't have to encumber the overhead of being a large-scale manufacturer or supplier. Where we first started, so prior to us meeting with Dragonfly, I took a DJI off-the-shelf drone here. This is one of their earlier models of their drone, and we started flying locally as a service around San Diego. What would happen if you had logos on a drone at large-scale events such as golf tournaments, volleyball tournaments, and sporting events around San Diego? In the last model, you saw 2 digital screens with LEDs and AI baked into it and all these advanced features. Our company started with this, an off-the-shelf drone that cost me $3,000. Took me to Colombia, South America, to find an aerospace designer to help us fabricate parts that could be easily 3D printed for cheap and come up with a solution that we could fly using the technology that we had available to us at the time. So we started with some big names. We were flying for Ralph's, we were flying for Grey Goose Vodka. We flew for some big name brands this early in our life cycle where we just thought we'd be a drone company flying signs on it. What happened was, from a concept of, what would happen if you decide to make drones more transparent and not have the cops called on you, to building a prototype using 3D printed parts that I would spend days and days at the public library just to get the parts printed for cheaply to be as lean as possible. One of the things that in startup world, especially if you don't come from a well-capitalized background, you have to learn how to be lean real fast, stretch a buck to go as far as you can in order to make things work. So I'm a lean, scrappy founder with big visions that's able to attract the right support because I'm able to do a lot with a little. And that means a lot to investors that invest in our company. So something interesting happened in 2020, as we all know. It's called COVID, right? Shut the whole world down. And right when we had gotten our first set of friends and family investors, we had gotten our prototype in terms of this static display ready to show off to the world and start flying to make money as a service company. The whole world shut down and there's no events for us to fly. Right. So what do we do in that case? So as a business owner, this was our first major pivot in our company. One of the biggest advantages you can have as a founder is being flexible and able to pivot to respond to changing and challenging environments. A lot of founders that I've found, especially when you speak to investors, tend to get stuck and not go any further because they have a vision concrete in their head that this is what they want, this is how they have to do it. But because my background is diverse and I come from things like songwriting as well as banking, I've seen how corporations build products. I've seen how they've had to be flexible. And my loyalty wasn't to the drone, it was to the customer experience. At the end of the day, I have a customer service-based mind that pushes my ability to do business development. So I'm flexible in order to make sure that I can deliver what that customer's looking for. Something interesting happened during COVID, where instead of people calling us to fly their events, people started calling us to buy the kits that can convert their drone into a flying advertising unit. So we had a slightly bigger drone, which I don't have pictured here, with a banner solution that wrapped around the drone. And we started selling these kits for, 10 times the amount that we paid for COGS, right? So at the time, these kits cost us about $1,300 to manufacture. And we were selling sets of 2 for over $13,000, right? So a $2,600 investment brought us $13K on average revenue from customers that saw the vision. So once we got to the point where I understood that, hey, there's a different way to go about this. There's thousands of drone pilots throughout the world, and they're all looking for ways to have more transparent drone operations. And more importantly, drive a new sense of revenue in an uncrowded market. And at that time, there still were photographers and videographers, and then the world is just starting to warm up to inspection work and some industrial work. But the advertising side of it, using drones for pushing content versus collecting content, was something brand new. So I met Dragonfly, the CEO and COO, in Las Vegas during a keynote that I was invited to do during CES. And they saw one of our alpha prototypes of our digital display. So prior to it becoming this version of the drone you see here, we had a tabletop version that was non-functional, meaning it couldn't fly, but it had screens on it and you could program it to show different signage, but it couldn't fly. So I would take one of our drones and set it on top of it like a little spinning hat. If you remember the kids with the little spinner hats, imagine that, but the hat portion would be the drone, the display enclosure, a truncated pyramid design with the drone as a concept. And that was enough to get the point across to where Dragonfly saw it. And timing is everything. So one of the other jewels of being a business, it doesn't matter how good your product is or how great you are as a leader. Sometimes it comes down to market timing and being in the right place at the right time. So I was on the right stage with the executives of Dragonfly, the COO and the CEO. They saw the alpha prototype. They just so happened to be building a new drone, which is this airframe you see on top. It's their Commander 3XL drone. And they were looking for new payloads to attach to their, what they call the Swiss Army knife of drones, right? So they want to show their investors all the cool things this drone can do. And what better way to create a brand new market space than to show that it can be attached and used for things like advertising and marketing. So not only did we decide that we wanted to try the advertising market, but also public safety, right? If this drone could be used for flying ads, it can also be used to save lives, right? What happens if that same drone is deployed in an active shooter scenario? What happens if that drone's deployed after a wildfire or a flood and emergency, or giving civilians instructions on where to go in terms of rally point and destination instructions, right? If we're able to provide a technology that can save one life, then we've done our job. So we have a dual use technology that not only can be used for advertising and marketing in public facing scenarios like sporting events, crowd facing concerts, trade shows, fairs, you name it, any type of outdoor experience, but now on the public safety side where we can save lives. But scaling a company comes with challenges, right? It comes with financial challenges, right? I've done everything that you've heard most founders do, from leveraging every single credit card in my name in order to survive while we're undergoing cash flow shortages in order to just keep the lights on, to finding investors that want to give us money in ways that we never thought, to going back to the drawing board. And just when you think you have enough traction, investors want more and more and more. And even in today's environment, like I'll give you all a real life example of something that we're going through literally today. So we're doing a multi-million-dollar seed round for our company right now to commercialize our product. Today, I'm pitching investors. So what I'm doing is I'm reaching out to VCs, venture capitalists. These are people that are in charge of finding companies that they can invest in. They invest with a consortium of funds that they get from other investors that all contribute to this fund. So it's investors that invest in an investment fund. And then that investment fund is tasked with going out to find businesses that they think can cash flow enough to have some sort of cash positive exit, either through a merger and acquisition or through an initial public offering, right? You have angel investors. These are usually folks that write smaller checks that are private equity. So family offices, rich families that may have some funding, affluent community members that may have funding. And you go out to these folks, and you say, hey, here's my idea, here's my pitch, and here's why I think it'll be successful. But we're experiencing a rather interesting market at the moment where, because of the tariffs, right? Our drones are built in Canada. We're experiencing tariffs that we have to pivot through, where we have to eat the cost of those tariffs because we can't pass the cost of that on to our customers as an early stage company, because we don't want to lose morale. We don't want to lose market momentum by increasing our prices by significant margins when our drones are already $85K a piece as an enterprise level solution. So we have to eat that, which affects our bottom line. Also, because of this economic turmoil, investors are a lot more sensitive to take risks on early stage companies. A lot of them are hoarding their capital and reinvesting into companies that are already winning, and is making the access to capital for small businesses especially tough. So not only are a lot of small businesses facing some strain on the front end with the tariffs and the economic situation where a lot of these components are sourced to build some of the greatest products that we have, but then also on the back end with securing investments, because companies aren't wanting to invest in new companies. They're holding their checks to invest in companies that already have proven out the market at a significant scale. Though we have traction, though we have patents, though we have things like that, it's still a challenge because everybody's looking for money from the same group of people. So when you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, the word grit, it flows through every facet of the life cycle of a business, from your concept to sticking to it, to refining it, to making pivots when the market's going through disruptions like COVID, and now disruptions with the tariffs that are happening. And then you look for ways to protect your intellectual property. So we have a patent, we have a utility patent, which is pretty thorough. Part of a pitch involves several parts. Usually you lead with an executive summary, which gives a snapshot of your business. And it gives them a 1 to 2 page, 30,000 foot level of your business. If there's interest from there, then usually you follow up with some sort of an extended pitch with an investor that is in alignment with your technology. So we're in hardware, but we're what's called asset light category. So we don't encumber all the overhead of manufacturing, things that I mentioned earlier. And we have a patent. So our patent's pretty comprehensive. It's a utility patent that covers dual-sided LED displays for high visibility aerial messaging, integrating speakers, so not only video, but audio features for alerts, modular mounting systems that's displayed for flexible customization on the drone, a remote control content, or the concept of changing ads on the fly while the drone's on the air, a vibration dampened platform, so the stability that goes into making sure that the drone is stable and the ads can be seen in an effective way. And then the cloud and IoT integration for smart city applications like AI that we'll get into. So it took me 5 years to get this patent, and almost $50,000 between 2 different patent attorneys and 2 different patent examiners. Patents are one of the most conflicting aspects of a business because they hold a lot of value and they give you some market protection a lot if you have a good patent, and I believe we do. But also they're very expensive to protect, right? So you can have the greatest patent in the world, but if the biggest company in the world comes in and decides to infringe on your patent, you can go bankrupt just trying to fight the big dogs who can just bleed you. So being first to market, creating sizable market presence around your business gives you the public sentiment that allows you to compete with some of the larger companies that you might not be able to outcapitalize, but you can out public relation them in a lot of ways, because nobody likes to see the little guy get devoured by the big guy if we can avoid it. So with the patent, it not only gives us the market protection, but it gives us a moat strategy that allows us to protect an end-to-end multimedia UAV platform solution. And it gives us an additional revenue opportunity where if we do decide that we want to help other people do what we do, even if they're competitors, they have to license that patent from us. So they can build a competing tech, but every drone that you sell that competes against ours, we take a percentage of that sale. So there's upsides to patents in more ways than one. As recently, what we realized that investors are interested in is recurring revenue, right? So the reason hardware is a little bit frowned upon in some investor circles is one, there's a perceived high capital expenditure, meaning you have hardware, so you have to deal with distribution, you have to deal with repairs and maintenance and all the things that comes around making sure that hardware can do its job, right? When we made our initial hypothesis about our business, we said if you build a drone and it advertises, people would buy it and want to use it as a business. So when I think of the economic opportunities, it's not just for us building drones to sell them. We're selling them to folks that are drone operators so that they can have a business in a box, that they can whip this thing out, go out to their local events and make great money, flying drones with no additional skills. So you can take a technically unskilled worker in terms of white collar skill, teach them how to fly a drone, give them the capability of acquiring one of our drones, go out and book contracts with some of the largest event organizers in the world, fly a drone with their ads or their gamified content, and make literally tens of $1,000s potentially a day flying these drones. What we thought would happen were that the event organizers would want to buy the drones themselves, but turns out they're not interested in buying drones, right? They just want to use the drones for their events, but they don't want to buy it. We shifted our revenue model a little bit, and this is how we make money. This is the core of what we do in our infrastructure. At the front here of our sales cycle, we have the hardware sale. So these are two what we call DSPs, or drone service providers. So these are the folks that already are Part 107 certified. They're used to flying drones for some sort of commercial aspect, whether it's videography or inspections or anything else in drones. And we're giving them a drone that can now do advertising, marketing, public safety missions. We have now this new hardware as a service subscription model where these event organizers and venues, so the NFL, for instance, we have the owner of the Colorado Rockies is flying out next month to do a personal demo with this drone. We've flown it at Petco Park for 22,000 people. We've flown it at the Intuit Dome, the home of the LA Clippers, for large marketing events. We've flown it for golf tournaments where each drone is making anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 every 10 to 15 minutes is in the air. As a service, what we're saying is we can bring a drone like this to your event for, let's just say, $5,000 to do 3 flights, 3 15-minute flights. So less than an hour's worth of work for $5,000, right? Which is great revenue. And what they do is they take that same drone that has anywhere from 15 to 20 ad slots on it, and they sell that ad space to their sponsors. So their sponsors say, wow, you have a drone with a screen on it. Instead of us just having our logo on a step and repeat or on a banner or on some cocktail napkin or in a brochure, it can be up on a drone where people can see it, and we can build all types of social exchange around that platform. So these folks can subscribe to a la carte. They do it one time, or they can subscribe on a monthly or annual basis. And now we get contracts from these folks to supply them with hardware to service their events. Now, right now, we're doing it locally to prove out the concept. But what we're doing is using these contracts that we're procuring and in the process of developing as an incentivization for our customers to buy more drones, because these will become our service agents. So if you buy a drone from us, what we want to be able to do is help you monetize your business day one by bringing you contracts from some of the largest event management companies, sport management companies that host in the entire world. So $85K might seem expensive to some people for a drone, but if we're able to show you how you can make $3,000 a day flying it for people that are going to monetize it and sell it for $20,000 at their events, they're making good margins on overhead. The sponsors love it because they're getting their ads in front of people in a more effective way. And then these folks love it because their hardware is getting put to work and monetizing from day one. But in order to qualify what we call a buyer opt-in, that's kind of the bridge between these two, you have to go through our training. So we have training that we're developing. And then you have to keep a maintenance plan on your drone so that your drone stays operable to service this contract. So we're making money on the hardware sale. We're making money on the service contract. We're making money on the training fee. We're making money on the maintenance fee. And then at the end of a 3 to 4 year life cycle of your drone, we're going to want you to upgrade that drone to stay in the cycle. So as we come up with new product, new technology, we want you to always have the latest and greatest to to give the best impression to our customers and their fans. So you trade your drone into us. We take it, we give you a credit on a new one. It starts you over here. And then we recycle your old drone, refurbish it, and then sell it again on a tier 2 market to a different country where an 85K price point might not be the sweet spot, but a 35 to 40K drone that can still have many years of active shelf life on it to use in those markets. So we have a repeating buyer cycle that we put in. Here's our real linchpin of our business, a data as a service component. So we have an investment from Google. Google has been one of our AI development partners. We went through their Google for Startups program, and we've built AI around facial detection that will, while the drones are in the air at these events, we're able to do things like count the crowds, see how long people are looking at advertisements, and which demographics are being exposed to your ads. So anything from gender to age to emotional scores, along with length of viewership, which we have in process to be built, and meta tagging, which ads are most effective, so that these sponsors, just think Red Bull and Nike, that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year to advertise at the Super Bowl, et cetera, up until this point, they haven't had any access to the data of how those ads are performing in an offline environment, right? So we're able to bridge that with this data as a service tool, where ultimately the more drones we sell, the more missions we fly, the more data we're able to keep as a company. And that leverages our ability to scale this to a merger or acquisition company in the future, where we sell this entire end-to-end cycle to a large scale outdoor advertising company or Google that has a knack for hardware and data. So essentially our patent covers 90% of this process outside of these services, this side of the field. And that's our business model. So what we've done just in terms of our success as a company is we've done some great traction. We have over $10 million in sales in our sales funnel already, pretty much with zero marketing, just word of mouth and SEO from people that are looking to get into this new market. As Rob mentioned earlier, we've got a strategic partnership with Dragonfly, who's not only our investor, but they're our OEM, with Google, that supported us with not only credits to build out our dashboard for the customer-facing side of our data, but also some of the data through their GCP, their Google Cloud processing, so we can crunch the data when it comes in from the drone. Carasoft, who's a DoD player, and we've been through countless accelerators. So another kind of aspect of business you want to remember is, again, you can't do it on your own. Find a community to support you. Get involved with business accelerators, business programs that have the resources to bring you mentors, to bring you perspective on how to grow a business, so you don't have to fail as often or fall as far. When you have people that you can kind of learn from by example. And you'll still go through your trial and error, and building a company is probably the most difficult thing you'll ever do in the world. I've never given birth to a child, but from what I hear, that's pretty painful. So I can only equate my version of that, this child being my business. So it's pretty intense. You're definitely going to lose some weight, gain some weight, burn some capital, make some money, lose some sleep, gain some sleep. Sometimes you might not want to get out of bed. That's just how the way of the world works. But behind every entrepreneur is a story. Behind every entrepreneur is a journey of failure, successes, and opportunities that were realized or not. And every single entrepreneur, including myself, has gone through many, many different times where they thought about giving up, and they just stick with it one more day, one more day, one more day. And then when you lift your head up from being sunken so many times, and I don't want to sound macabre about it or dystopian, because running a business is also one of the most beautiful things you can do when you bring something to life. But the reality is it's challenging. And the reality is there's a lot of people trying to do it. So finding something unique that can fill an actual purpose will help you. Having the grit to go through the good times and the bad times will give you remarkable advantages. Being flexible and knowing when to pivot to adjust your strategy in order to be flexible in a changing environment. Staying optimistic and surrounding yourself with good people that have your best interest in mind, that can tell you to keep your head up even some of the days when you feel like just giving up, when you have nothing left to give. And then creating value for yourself as a demonstrated expert in your space. And then it opens you up to new opportunities you may have never thought of. So in our time, we've come up with the prototype. We've built millions in our sales pipeline. We've got letters of intent from customers for millions of dollars. We have a patent that gives us intellectual property position and control over an entire market. We have interest from investors from all over the globe, and we get to put our stamp on something that'll far outlast me. When I'm long and gone, my creation will still live and be contributing to the opportunity for people to make money, drive success, or save lives. So when I think about what's ahead for us, a couple things. We're getting into a world of advanced aviation and advanced air mobility, where drones are just the beginning. As futuristic as things are today, in 10 years, 20 years, these things will be antiquated, and it'll be new things happening and new ways for you to do drones. So assuming I'm still around at that point, My vision is to use AI to optimize and streamline the ability to scale businesses, to give back, reinvest in other businesses and other communities, to be plugged into these smart city infrastructures where you're seeing drones being used currently for a cargo delivery or food delivery or blood delivery. Now we're delivering messages with these things. Eventually, they'll be able to fly longer, perform better, and be lighter weight, and be part of a truly sustainable future where we're using renewable and reusable technologies versus carbon-based, fossil fuel emitting, carbon emitting devices, where we're actually able to soar in the skies through the likes of eVTOLs, which will be automated and fully battery powered. And where I see it going is not only that, but we're at a point of convergence where the opportunities for our market have never been better, where more drone jobs are being created. Not only if you want to go out and get a job at a utilities company flying drones or law enforcement, but being an entrepreneur in the drone world, where it's converging with AI and autonomous devices. So even if you're not interested in flying drones, you can build drones, you can program drones, you can build software around systems to make drones more efficient. So my vision for global growth and impact, it looks like job creation. It looks like workforce development. It looks like curriculums being brought into schools to teach students at a far younger age how to get their hands on what we would consider complicated technology today. And they're learning from these things day one, so that when they're of age to start making money, they can get right out of school with or without a 4-year degree, making a means to an ends for their family and creating sizable income that leads to tax-paying income, which ultimately scales up to a better economy for all of us involved. Grit beats perfection, right? Don't wait. There's never going to be a perfect time to start a business. Start collaborating and jotting down your ideas today. It doesn't matter if it's fully fleshed out. Take the time you need to think it through. Let life happen. Sometimes the best ideas happen when you're not thinking about it. I have a little kind of a metaphor that I use, or an example, right? So when we look through our eyes, we're always looking at the world ahead of us, kind of in a macro level. But we have this little thing called a nose right here that we look right past all the time. But if you kind of close one eye and you focus down, you can kind of see your nose there, right? So my hypothesis is the best ideas are usually right here at the tip of our nose. But we're so busy looking out there at the big picture that we miss some of the little things that could transform and be revolutionary. So some of the most genius ideas that have ever been created are things that solve practical problems. How do you get people to look at something longer? How do you get people how do you get coffee to brew in your house and not have to, go to a coffee shop to do it? Whatever it is, the most genius ideas are one that solve very simple problems. Create something, just start. It beats perfection. There's going to be days where you just don't have things figured out and you just have to stick to it to maybe tomorrow figure it out, or the day after, or the week after, or the month after, or the year after, right? Stay in the game. As long as you're in the game, you have an opportunity to continue and grow and make an impact. With that said, pivot, don't give up. Sometimes you might hit a brick wall, and instead of keep bumping your head into a brick wall, change your strategy. Get feedback from people that may say, hey, I know you wanted to do it this way, but have you ever considered maybe thinking about doing it this way? And let that pivot, let your mind be flexible and open enough to make a change that could be the difference between you having a successful vision manifested and realized versus just a concept that becomes a regret later as we're landing on that bed, wishing that we did more in our lives and didn't have enough flexibility or ego reduction in order to make changes when people gave us great feedback, right? Listen to your customers. Sometimes the best way for you to build a great product is let your customers tell you what to build, right? Do customer research, talk to them, get their feedback on what pain points they're having, do customer discovery calls where before you try to sell anybody anything, understand what's disruptive to them in their day-to-day life, and then understand how you can create something to solve that pain, to lessen that worry. And if you can show somebody how you can make their job easier, more effective, make them the hero of their story, and you're there. I always compare it to Batman and Alfred. Right, we're Alfred, and our customers are Batman. Right, they're the ones out in the world fighting the good fight. We're the ones that are arming them with the right tools. Right, so find what tools that your Batman's looking for, and find a way to arm them with the right tools so they can go out and be the heroes of their story. Strategic partnerships are a must. Right, if you can't build it and you don't have the resources to build it on your own, find somebody who does. Find companies that might want to collaborate with you. A lot of people think competition, but I always say collaboration over competition. Find ways to join forces and alliances with folks that can get you in the right rooms, get you in the right doors, get their logo on stuff, right? For every promo drone logo you see on our drone, there's a dragonfly logo as well, right? So when they see that logo, they're not just seeing our brand reputation around this whole platform, but they're seeing 30 years of drone reputation and building experience with the dragonfly logo on there as well, right? So strategic partnerships are a must. And then stay committed to the mission, right? Pivot is part of it, but ultimately stay committed. And staying committed, again, includes pivoting, right? Staying committed to something doesn't mean being bullheaded and just head down, going straight forward. It means being flexible, being adaptable, but getting up every day to put your pants on, tie your shoes, and go out and fight another day, even when you're beat up, bloody, and it feels like you can't go anymore. Find your resilience, tap into your strength, tap into your why, what it is that's motivating you to want to go out and do something impactful, and surround yourself with good people that'll tell you it's going to be okay, hang in there, and you got this, right? Hopefully that was valuable to folks, and happy to answer some questions.
That was impressive. A lot of great telling the story of behind your company and how you make revenue and the challenges, because many of our students will take the entrepreneur route or already have, and so this is very informative and very beneficial to them. Mohammed, you have a question?
As Jamar said, like there's gonna be softwares revolving around the drones. How big would be the market for AI softwares for the drones? Would it be growing? I just want to know like the potential of the software market around the drone.
It's massive. If I had to put a number to it, because I do a lot of data on this stuff, you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars, right? Our total addressable market just in our categories from live events and public safety globally is 1.5 trillion. So if you weed that down to like software, you're talking, several hundred billion. And here's why. Because drones are starting to get into what's called BV loss, which is beyond visual line of sight, where right now everybody's operating with a Part 107. In the future, it will be a Part 108. And when drones start to go out of your line of sight, you're going to need more complex software to make sure that operations performs safely. And that's going to require autonomous solutions. It's going to require critical thinking. And some of that will have to be managed by software that can offload, that can predict operational avoidance and risk mitigation in advance. On our end, what we're looking at in terms of some of the software is in the future, there will be opportunities for AI generated ads to be created on the fly. So as audiences are or aren't responding to certain subsets of advertising categories, the drone will create ads in real time in order to have more effective content to get more eyeballs on that ad for that sponsor. So real-time flexibility, think flight software as well, being able to have critical objectives, especially in DoD. Like recently, they just announced, I think it was Boeing that got a new contract with the government, like $75 or $100 billion to develop their new F aircraft. The F-47s is what they're called. Imagine a fighter jet that's controlled by a pilot, but this pilot is only doing probably 50% of the controls and maneuverability because it's using AI in order to do mission objectives. And they've got 3 or 4 satellite aircraft flying next to them, unmanned, completely unmanned, that go ahead and fulfill aspects of a mission while the pilot, the human subject, is back, hundreds of miles away. These drones go out, complete a mission, clear space out, and so they can go in there and fulfill their mission. So think of autonomous mission operations, think of safety, think of aspects of creation using advertisements to streamline and hyper accelerate return on investment. So it's a magnificent field for AI solutions in the drone space.
Right. Mohammed, thanks for your question and appreciate the answer, Jamar.
I want to ask, is there any opportunity as a graduate student to help you grow your brand, probably through sales outreach or local events in a way that will create income potentials for both of us?
Yeah, we do have internships that we're building, and with the funding that we're building now, we're building out some more of our core team members. I would say connect with me on LinkedIn. Just Google, just search for my name on LinkedIn, and just shoot me a message on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to follow up one-on-one, if nothing more than a 15-30 minute meeting to see where there may be some alignment. And if it's not with us, I know a lot of people in industry between UAV, advanced air mobility, eVTOLs, future flight, thinking around vertiports, privatized transportation with electronic flying transportation. So flying vehicles is what they call it. Happy to see how I can help you get in with some good people, no matter what.
Jamar, thank you very much for presenting today. This is wonderful information. Drones are what's going on in the industry. It's popular now. It's going to continue to grow. And so this is very relevant for our students today and relevant for the future. So thank you for sharing your story. You have an inspirational story and thank you for all the information that you shared about your company and building your company and where you came from.
Thank you. I'm very humbled to be here. I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me.